There we go.
Oh, you got to get into it. It's a
Get
Friday
into it, my
afternoon.
man. Oh, hello, Zach.
Hello, Jeremy. How are you?
Watching your dancing? I'm feeling really good. It's a Friday.
It's a Friday.
We're recording this on a Friday. You're recording this from your farmhouse out
Yeah.
in Southwest Connecticut, and you just look exuberant right now. You've got this great smile on your face.
It's good.
I'm excited to have you here. We've known each other for a long time. We've paralleled by growing up in this universe together. I have the pleasure of knowing who you are. Who am I speaking with?
You got Zach Kubin. I don't even know how to introduce myself on this one. I think you and I have known each other for so long. It feels awkward when you have to introduce yourself to people that you've known for this amount of time, but currently co-founder and head of sales at Adelaide. So really excited to be here with you.
Ooh, I'm very familiar with Adelaide, and I hope our viewers, our listeners are as well. We'll get into that in a few minutes, but as we've both grown up into this industry of advertising, ad tech, marketing, SaaS, why don't you tell us a little bit of advice just that you would give your younger self and that you would give to your younger colleagues as a co-founder and someone who has been doing it for 20 years?
Sure.
You're old.
Yeah, I definitely feel a little bit older, looking back on my career, which has, been about 15, 18 years. There's a good story about when I was working at Group M, which is where I started my career. We had a junior planner who worked for me who has now become SVP or EVP or some senior person at Publicis. And the advice that I would give myself, which is something I try to do today, is you never know who's going to be that important person at some point down the road. Be nice to people. Just be kind to people. Just assume that everybody at some point is somebody that you're going to need help from or need advice from or need to call in a favor from. And, obviously, if they think of you when you make that phone call to somebody they want to help out, it just helps move things along a little bit faster. So definitely big fan of paying it forward, however you want to define it, treating people with respect. And you never know when you have to call in that favor.
That says a lot. It's part of the OhHello mantra, and we're excited to have you on the platform. But help us understand, just watching you build Adelaide for the past several years, we were working on a partnership together probably 4 years ago when I was at Adobe, and you were in the earlier days of building Adelaide. Help us just understand about your journey thus far.
Sure. Well, we could start from the very beginning. I think there's some humor in that. I started my career at Y&R. I worked for a guy named David Sable, who still to this day is a mentor of mine. He built the very first digital advertising agency at WPP. They were literally building banners on websites. I was in college at the time, and I just had a front row seat to how that business got done. I parlayed that into a job where I was effectively working in a closet, like Milton from Office Space. I was expected to make cold calls. I wasn't. I did that for 2 years. Didn't like it. A friend of mine said, AT&T is this big piece of business. They're going to work at Group M. You should go take a job there. I interviewed with a woman named Carrie Frolich. She put me on Alice Dure's team. Shout out to Alice, who had to tolerate me for about 4 or 5 years. I worked on the AT&T business. Got to really understand how media was bought and sold. Had the good fortune of meeting a guy named Sam Duncan. Sam and I built this blog called What Happens in Media Planning. We were exposed to sales folks and all of the nonsense that they put out in how they try to get your attention, try to get you to go do stuff. So we started creating all these GIFs, making fun of salespeople. Lo and behold, here I am doing this. Went to a startup after that. Was recruited by a guy named Jared Hand, another one of my mentors. I know mentorship is a big part of the OhHello platform. Worked for Jared for 2 years. And then, the apocryphal Marc Guldimann story. I met Marc and Diane at the tail end of my career at OnSwipe. They came in for a meeting. Meeting went really poorly. We had no business to do together. But I think Marc and Diane said, that Zach guy seems all right. Maybe we should try to hire him. I was out in Colorado, went skiing with Marc, randomly was there for a job interview. He thought I was there for the Digiday Summit. I wasn't, but happened to be there with my father skiing. And we headed off. And that was 9 years ago on a chairlift. Marc was like, let me tell you about attention metrics. And I was all in at that point.
That's amazing. You just said it yourself, attention metrics.
Yeah.
What are attention metrics? How do you view attention metrics?
So when Marc and I first started, and Diane and Perry and our sort of co-founding group, the first thing that we built was a platform that we built creative for publishers that they could resell. It was intended to be politely interruptive. Basically, the ad experience was you'd scroll an ad onto the screen, people would spend time with it, they'd scroll it away. So we sold that format, went really well. And then we had this meeting with this guy named Eric Picard at Media Math. And Marc and I sat in this meeting. We had this idea for a media business where we could sell based on duration. We left the meeting, and Eric, his parting words were, you can't do this as anything other than a managed service. You have to build a sales team. I walk out of that meeting with Marc, and I said, this is terrible. We're going to have to hire a sales guy. And I had this experience at Group M dealing with all of these salespeople. And Marc looks at me and goes, what are you talking about, man? You're going to do that. And I was like, wait, what? And I was crestfallen for like 2 weeks, talking to my girlfriend. I'm like, I can do the sales thing. This is a terrible idea. We took the business at Parsec, where we sold cost per second advertising, and we turned it into a $10 million a year business in about 3 years, which is really exciting. Amazing. We happened to get to this point where our clients at the time, Microsoft, were eager for us to pivot from a media business into a measurement business. And so we kind of took their advice. We sold the Parsec business to Cargo. We built Adelaide from the ground up as a measurement business. And so for us, what we're trying to do is just to help brands and agencies get a better understanding as the quality of the media that they buy, right? Putting a rating on it, making that rating super simple to understand, and say media that is rated higher by Adelaide with the AU metric typically drives better outcomes. And so for us, attention measurement is simply to replace a lot of the metrics that brands use in market, like viewability and video completion rate, and say there are better ways to measure the media that you're buying. And we think that we've got a pretty good solution for it.
So what specifically would you say is the differentiator, or what separates Adelaide from the herd? Is it the fact that you are just creating attention metrics, creating your own unit, or is it help us understand?
So there's I think a common misconception about attention measurement, right? Like we just want to measure the amount of time that people spend looking at content. Yep. That's an ingredient, but that's not the be all end all. My mom, who works in finance, she was like, give me a really easy way to explain what you do to people. I said, okay. What we're doing, it's like Moneyball, but for smart media buyers, right? Better data to make better decisions that typically drive better outcomes. And so there are an increasing number of companies out there that are focused on attention. They talk about attention, and how we want to define that attention for us at Adelaide is simply the probability of attention on the media placement itself, and then help those brands and agencies buy better media as we've rated it, and showing them that it's driving better outcomes. Our differentiator is just, we are relentless in showing the efficacy of the metric as it relates to outcomes.
Thank you for explaining that. I think that's such a finessed, eloquent way of describing it, especially because it is so buzzy in our ecosystem.
Yeah.
And seeing just how much traction you guys are making with that, help us understand just how does it relate to the buy side from the sell side when it comes to attention metrics? Can you kind of explain the variance between the two?
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge that the terms finesse and eloquence are not normally associated with anything I'm involved in.
Yeah, I know.
So I really appreciate that. My wife will listen to the podcast and she'll be thrilled to hear this. So when you have the buy side and the sell side, the iteration of our business started by helping the buy side find arbitrage, right? Finding opportunities for their dollar that would drive better results. And over time, we saw more and more publishers say like, hey, we're hearing about this Adelaide metric. We're hearing about AU. How do we rate? What is our rating? And for a long period of time, we didn't want to share that information with the buy side, with the sell side, because we wanted our buyers to find that arbitrage. We wanted them to take advantage of the inefficiency in the market. Over time, and I'd say over the last 12 months or so, we've started bringing the sell side into our conversation and saying, hey, let us help you understand of the media that you're selling to your clients, where's the good stuff and the bad stuff? Because what ultimately that'll allow the market to do is to have a shared understanding of quality. Right now, there's a total dissonance in how the market assesses the value of one impression versus another. Viewability, video completion rate ain't it. There's a meme that we've created, like Waldo is viewable. Right. And that's sort of like an easy to explain joke that people can be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Waldo, yeah.
And so what our hope is that over time, as more advertisers and more brands and agencies kind of get on board with Adelaide, that it gives publishers an opportunity to justify the price that they're selling their media for and create some shared understanding of the quality that can be transacted. And, at that point, I think we've got a pretty good story as far as currency is concerned. Currency is a loaded word right now, and got a lot of friends of mine that work in Nielsen and ComScore, but I think our definition of currency is really on the quality of the media that a seller represents, right? We want to be able to be that rating.
I love the Waldoism approach and just the way that you're able to explain to both your mom and a 7 or 8-year-old what you're doing, because we've got their parents and are up and comers in this industry, and there's a lot of noise, and we as the industry see more news and press and buzz about Adelaide than a lot of other companies, and there's something to be said about the grit and hustle. Help us understand a little bit more about just some of these partnerships that you're most excited about, some of these partnerships that you're rolling your sleeves up and just diving in for.
Yeah. I'll talk about how we got the partnerships, which I think is interesting. We have an incredible marketing department, and I cannot say enough about how much easier it makes our job and the salespeople at Adelaide. But when we started, there were no partnerships, right? Our focus was solely on working with the agencies. And what we found at agencies were you typically have a champion. You typically have one person that is ideologically aligned with what you're trying to do. You go in there, you talk about attention metrics. I remember I've told the story a number of times. There's this one woman who works at this holdco, and the very first conversation I had with her was, she's like, I believe in attention measurement, but prove it. We proved it. And then, you're a hip hop fan. I'm a hip hop fan. Drake talks about his day ones. You know who those people are, that from the very, very beginning were there when you proved it out. And they're like, all right, I'm going to open the door for you at this holdco. I'm going to make your life a lot easier. So when you get that level of partnership in place, and I know who each of those day ones are at each of the holdcos that we work with, it makes those partnerships that we have that much easier to strike. And so we've got some really incredible partnerships coming up, specifically on the publisher side about some products that we're going to be releasing on the supply side, and also on the just sort of the overall programmatic side. The excitement that we have as a result of those partnerships is a function of the great marketing and the great positioning we have in market and the support that we get from our clients in the buy side.
You're working across hundreds of different advertisers in about call it a minute and a half or so. Tell us a little bit more about some of the learnings that you've seen over the past few years, because just spill the tea. Let us understand. There's so much that you're seeing. You and I have talked off the record. Like, give us a little bit more.
Yeah. Most brands, most agencies will accept that the way that they're judged with the metrics that they have for media are bad. Most brands will say, I judge the efficacy of my media on click-through rate, on video completion rate, on viewability, because I don't have anything else. And so when we make the case as to why AU might help them out, A, you're solving a problem. But B, more importantly, you're giving them ammunition to go to their senior leadership and say, hey, we're working with this company. It's, as a result, giving us access to information that we didn't have previously. We're making better decisions with our media dollars, and we're driving better performance. That performance for us, it doesn't matter. Right? It can be brand lift, it can be conversion, it can be whatever that business objective is for us. That's the North Star that we want to hold ourselves accountable to. And so the success that we've been able to show is, however we're going to be judged, as long as we can articulate that to our stakeholders and talk about AU, the use case for AU is to show incremental effectiveness as measured by this. When we do that, everybody's really happy. And most of the time that happens, right? That is typically the way things go for us.
Zach, this has been awesome. Really enjoy just hearing about your journey, and we're so excited to have you on our platform. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for just telling us the story about Adelaide. It's just, it's fun watching you guys grow. You guys are crushing it. Continue to do well. Thank you, Zach.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, hands out. Hands out.
Good grief.
Where'd he go?
Here we go.
Everybody.